to in the world of education? How's the global innovation? Let us do the calculations, use all our imagination. You'll subscribe, no hesitation, with my corroboration. And that's a bet I will not hedge. Listen up, cause it's Ed on the Edge.
So welcome. We're doing another Ed on the Edge with my very good friend, Lev Gonick, who is the CIO at Arizona State University. I'm very much looking forward to our conversation because every conversation I have with Lev, not only do I learn something, but it's always a lot of fun. So, Lev, welcome to the pod.
Hey, Michael. Great to see you, and good to see you back in this part of the world.
Yeah. Well, I was in India last week with some of Lev's colleagues at the event we had in Gurgaon, India, but which was a great event. But it was too bad, Lev, you weren't there. We missed you.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing you obviously coming up pretty soon at ASU GSV in San Diego. That'll be a lot of fun as always.
Can't wait. So there's a lot I want to talk to you about as it relates to the things that you're doing today and, some of the initiatives that you've got at Arizona State. And obviously this recent announcement with the first university to have a partnership with OpenAI. But before we go there, let's back up a little bit. I want to talk about, how did you get from where you began to, Arizona State? So, more recently, you were the CIO at Case Western, and then you had an entrepreneurial journey where you were the CEO of DigitalC. But talk about how did you first, get involved in the education technology world?
Well, actually, Michael, I started, as a professor, actually, and I was teaching some pretty esoteric topics and trying to find a way to engage my students in being interested in the topics. This had to do with international commodity flows, something that every student needs to know about in their academic careers. Before there was an internet as we know it today, I was working, helping them understand how to use multimedia tools to actually create stories around the flow of cocoa or bauxite or other commodities and what they look like, taking them either out of the ground or until they show up, in our either grocery stores or, in our TV rooms and things like that, just to kind of help tell stories with technology. And after that, I had a great opportunity to be very, very early on in online instructing again before there was a World Wide Web. And in 1993, in October, just as the World Wide Web, as we've come to know it, was actually introduced, I was on a sabbatical, which is one of these great things that professors get to do. Right. I took a sabbatical. I was teaching up in Canada. I took a sabbatical with my young family at the time. In Phoenix, Arizona. I was associated with Arizona State University during sabbatical. And during sabbatical, you get the chance to do, some rejuvenating and some, reflecting on things you want to do. And I had time to actually teach online in this new thing called a Mosaic browser. And that kind of got me going. And, thereafter, I ended up crossing over to the dark side, leaving the teaching profession and coming over to work as an administrator, helping the institutions think about how to leverage technology. And, that was a wave of, in many ways I've been riding for the last now 30 years.
Well, Case Western got globally recognized for the innovative things that you were doing. What were some of the key things that you did there that created the notoriety?
Well, I mean, it's a great institution, obviously, in a great city in Cleveland, Ohio. And there's a lot of fabulous work that, I was able to build on. And some of the stuff that we worked on in those days included trying to engage the campus community in leveraging our networks to actually extend them to the communities around us. So in a lot of our American cities, universities are surrounded by some of the poorer parts of the cities around them. Cleveland, it was no different that way. And a lot of the community around us didn't have access to internet. And so, we built out what became a kind of proof point of how universities could partner with their communities to provide internet access to the communities. That became a kind of proof point for the National Broadband Plan that came out of the Obama administration. And subsequently, we created a nonprofit to advance that work in Cleveland. That's what you referenced in terms of my entrepreneurial opportunity. I actually spun off myself with what became known as DigitalC. At the time, it was known as One Community, to again find ways of bringing people who are in public housing or living in mobile home parks and things like that into the digital age along the way. That was one of the innovations that we certainly became well known for, but we also had just a whole bunch of interesting cutting edge technologies that we were working on. Before video over the internet was a big thing, somebody had to sort of break their teeth doing that. And Case Western Reserve was one of the very first universities to try to do it in a ed tech kind of way. With again internet technologies today, we kind of chuckle at it, but it took a lot of engineering and a lot of gumption to think that you could actually do interactive learning online. Back in those days, we created a product called Media Vision that was an early effort at that kind of work, and I would say dozens of other innovations in the teaching and learning arena, and that kind of got me interested in your world, sort of the ed tech world, because it was in that era. In fact, I read a piece before I got to Cleveland by this guy Michael Moe. At the time, I think you were working for, maybe it was with Merrill Lynch, or is that the seminal piece that I read probably in 1997. Is that possible? 1997, 98. And I kind of went, wow, the stuff I'm doing is actually part of a emerging market trend. And I ought to actually learn something about this market. And I read the prospectus basically that you outlined back now, literally almost 29 years ago, that this was actually going to be a huge market and a potentially disruptive market, and a market that could actually lead to better learning outcomes for students and learners all over the world.
Well, thank you. What enticed you so that now you're in this entrepreneurial journey, which was very well regarded in terms of what you were doing and the importance of what you were doing? What enticed you to go to Arizona State in 2017?
Well, again, I sort of shared that, back in 1993, I was here on sabbatical. And so I kind of had a series of connections to the institution all those years. And I also had a set of relationships with Michael Crow during his tenure, earlier tenure here at Arizona State University, as a chance to be a trusted advisor to some of the early work that President Crow was working on with his provosts, and trying to, again, share some of the things that we were doing, to hopefully ignite further creativity here at ASU. And at that moment, that President Crow basically said, "Lev, we have an opportunity for you here." It was a really good moment for me, as I had actually found a way to exit. We actually had a liquidity event in Cleveland with the nonprofit that led to a nonprofit endowment being created with the assets that we managed to sell. And it was a good opportunity for me to look at new opportunities. And the prospect of working with President Crow, with Michael Crow, was really wonderful, as was the chance to work with a number of these colleagues that I kept in touch with over the years and the decades here. And I managed to convince my wife that this was the right time to leave her hometown, which is Cleveland, Ohio. So,
anybody who's paying attention knows that Arizona State has become this incredible engine of innovation. 9 years in a row, U.S. News and World Report ranked it the #1 innovative university in the United States. And I think just to take a pause, and I started to gloss over because you just sort of, you've heard it, you kind of almost take it for granted. But that's pretty remarkable. I mean, if there was a football team that won nine national championships in a row, everybody'd want to know what's the secret sauce. How do you create? That's not by accident. It's not by luck. There's some very important things that are going on here. If you're kind of to boil down what's going on at Arizona State, that is this engine of innovation, what were kind of some of the key things that you would highlight? What's the secret sauce, in other words?
Yeah, I mean, I would start with mindset. So I would say at ASU, certainly from the very top down, there is an abundance mindset, which is very different than a lot of universities where there is a constraint kind of mindset. And that abundance mindset really affords us a license to actually trailblaze and to try and to experiment and to, in some ways go take leaps of faith, to advance our mission, our charter here at ASU, which is focused in on student success and on inclusivity in terms of making sure that students have access, all students across the country have access to a great education that's there. So I would say mindset in terms of an abundance mindset is a big piece of it. The second thing I would say is that at a lot of universities, there still is a interesting kind of debate that, the faculty and the administrations have about what is the role of technology and how much technology and so forth. At ASU, if there was ever a debate, it was solved long ago and resolved long ago. And so our clock speed, the innovation clock speed, is much, much faster here because there's less friction around the question of where technology fits in. There is nothing in the ASU ecosystem that isn't, I think, embraced and informed by leveraging technologies to support both the speed and the scaling of the work that we aspire to achieve in, again, service of our charter that is out there. So abundance, clock speed in terms of the use of technology, and then this thing I've referred to, this charter. Again, I know, Michael, you've been to campus. You always hear ASU folks talk about the charter. That charter matters, and it's a big deal because it keeps us focused on the North Star. And a lot of universities don't actually have a North Star. They kind of have a generic statement about, the importance of the mission. But the charter at ASU on, again, measuring ourselves by who we include rather than by who we exclude, and their success is a really big deal for everyone who is serving and supporting Michael Crow's senior administration. And I would say not just the senior administration. I think if you spoke to any of the 1,000 FTEs that work for me inside enterprise technology here at ASU, they would probably to a person say that the charter is what brought them here.
And that's just to kind of, again, put an emphasis on 1,000 FTEs that work directly under you, the CIO.
Yeah, and that's really less than half of all the IT professionals. 1 out of every 13 people who work at ASU are IT professionals. No, I don't know of any other university who can actually, who've organize themselves. So, central IT, we have 928 FTEs. Just to be clear, I don't want to be told that I'm exaggerating too much. But across the university, there's at least another 1,400 FTEs focused day in and day out. These are not people who kind of have other jobs and who are, by the way, doing technology work. And that investment in technology professionals, staff, engineers, developers, that is definitely part of the secret sauce. And in part, I'm able to attract fantastic talent because of this growth mindset, this opportunity to experiment, to help use technology to change people's lives.
Well, just again, context, my youngest daughter, her liberal arts school had basically 1,000 students. So you have 1,000 people working in the IT department. And obviously ASU has a couple 100,000 students. So, everything.
I think of 180,000 students. Again, and obviously technology plays a big part for access, especially for our online students.
And just I think last year you were recognized by ORBIE as the top large enterprise CIO in the state of Arizona. So there's not many universities anywhere where that type of recognition, or that's sort of the way, that's just kind of the reality of the operation enterprise that ASU is, and the role that you play within it. So talk more about this kind of North Star and how technology is essential to be able to accomplish it, which is this idea of access, and not measured by the people that you exclude, but the number of the people you exclude. How does technology play a role in that ability to have truly scale impact? What are some of the key things that you're doing that are critical to accomplish that goal?
Well, I think, some of the secret sauce, Michael, that helps ASU achieve its scale in addressing its mission is very much the way in which we have designed and now how we manage the entire life cycle of a relationship that we have with students before they are students, as they are prospects, no matter whether they're coming out of a traditional high school pipeline or whether they're coming back into the world of universities through work back to school opportunities, or coming from serving in the military and cycling back into into civilian life and coming through the university to do so. Again, whether you're international students and trying to find your way to kind of some of the opportunities that are afforded by great American universities, all of which ASU has like huge numbers of international students, huge numbers of personnel coming from the military services and into the academy. All of that we are able to manage through fairly sophisticated use of software technology. And so we have a technology stack that really is a life cycle management tool that includes CRM technologies, that includes ongoing ability to help manage students when they find themselves at risk because they might be actually not participating in their classes, or maybe they're not actually eating in the cafeteria, even though they have a meal card. We can track basically not just their academic performance, but we can also help understand and monitor the social context within which their lives as students are advancing, and help students move through the full breadth of not only academic success, but the success of socially navigating the university world and balancing work and family and all of those pieces and parts. So I think the scorecards and the decision support technologies that we provide are not things that we talk about that much because it is part of our secret sauce. But I have to say that they keep on getting more and more sophisticated in ways that I think, again, we could measure our success moving from a retention rate between first and second years that was in the mid 60% area, now that is very much just on the precipice of 90% retention. Like, how do you actually measure your success against that charter? And part of it is making sure that you can retain your students through the journey, and their academic success is one part of it, but so too is the ways in which we use our tools to support their social experience here as well.
You and I were in Tel Aviv a year ago, saw A21, which is a very, very impressive AI business. Recently, you made global news, have created the first partnership with OpenAI, first university partnership with OpenAI. How do you see AI playing a role to both enhance and accelerate this mission of excellence at scale? And what are the kind of the new skills and things that you're trying to learn to accomplish that? And what do and what are the things you're most excited about?
Well, I'm generally not prone to hyperbole, but honestly, Michael, the world of AI, in my mind, even though these are early days, very early days, we are at a tipping point in terms of our ability to leverage technology as a a way of creating more and more tools and experiences to support student success in ways that in the past, we've never been able to really imagine. And this has to do with the prospect of using AI as it gets better and as we have more and more granular control over what gets ingested into the machine learning environments through what are generally called large language models, but are actually in this context specialist models, more discrete models that we can curate. That possibility of turning those technologies, Michael, into really the prospect of a individual, personalized, customized tutor that would allow individual students to be able to have a co-pilot, somebody working with them. That's not a someone, it's a machine, obviously, but to be able to over time even begin to imagine, creating a series of avatars or otherwise characters who could help you as a student work through your STEM classes, if that's the gateway class. Or we're spending a lot of time right now figuring out on how to use AI for math success, which is another huge gateway. Getting through calculus at universities is a huge gateway challenge for especially students who want to go on and do engineering, or for that matter, want to go on and do medicine, for example. So getting that technology in place that really is about having a machine who can become a creative buddy, but also a tutor who can help you in a much more organic way. So much of the university model that we work with is essentially a factory model. You basically show up in a lecture or in a seminar, and the instruction is basically delivered to the middle. And if you're good at kind of what the mainstream way of learning is, then you'll succeed. But there's so many students out there who are not quote unquote good at that way of learning. Again, we could well imagine that, and again, we're starting to work on it here. Different pedagogical skills, not only our preferences of our university faculty, but also our learners can also actually outline the ways in which they want to learn, and then use AI to begin to provide, as we're doing now with lab support, our large writing classes. All of those are starting to have much more of a personalized, customized, even though, for example, in writing, we have 20,000 students at ASU in our freshman composition class. The prospects of turning that into something other than a factory model should be something that we all look forward to and get excited about. And actually, the tool that we use, that we are beginning to use, is this tool that we saw together in Tel Aviv from the company AI21 called WordTune. And again, that's beginning to work its way into this huge class around writing. We're using other tools for our STEM subjects, where again, each of these language models have other kinds of different strengths that we want to be tuning into. And our engagement with OpenAI was really on the idea that both of our organizations are committed at global scale of leveraging AI, not only for good, but AI specifically for achieving a better, more informed, more educated population.
You just made a quick mention of sort of the tweaking or the things that you need to be doing that's not just taking sort of the off-the-shelf OpenAI and this, here you go, student, go at it. So you talk about the kind of discrete knowledge set, in which obviously everything from hallucinations to just having something that is, most relevant is important. How are you going about doing that? I mean, how big a challenge is that for you? And again, contrast that with sort of just the general usage that people can get, and why this is, why that's so important.
Well, there are, the technology is quickly maturing. I mean, really quickly. Right? Let's remember that as we speak, OpenAI's ChatGPT is not yet 15 months old as a company. And of course, surpassed 100 million users worldwide like a long time ago. But under all of that is a quickly maturing set of technologies that are aspiring to be built in a robust way for enterprise use. And so there are a couple of things that are really important to universities in this space, where everything else needs to be understood as aspirational. Now we're actually beginning to build it. One, we have to be able to protect our intellectual property. Like, that's our currency at universities. We can't actually take our IP, whether that's in a research lab or whether that is in a article that we're writing, and put it into the commercial consumer version of an OpenAI ChatGPT, because that's actually allowing their machines to get further tuned on the basis of our IP or our contribution. So that's a hugely important piece that the enterprise version of ChatGPT allows us to essentially create a garden wall, and we get to basically just, again, do all of the machine learning, but without it being shared with the commercial products that are out there in terms of their machines being tuned. The other piece that's related in many ways is making sure that we have enhanced privacy and security, because again, our students and our research activities require we have regulatory requirements for FERPA and other things, and we have to take those seriously. And so until such time as there was a enterprise version of it, we certainly weren't ready to jump in. And then thirdly, a big part of the reality is that all of the excitement and all of the hype around generative AI right now has actually been more, again, aspirational and less about how much you can actually give these machines, because the economics of actually using the technologies are fairly expensive right now at scale. And so large data sets that, faculty want to be using, or scripts that they want to be using, or API calls that they want to be leveraging, that can very quickly actually break the piggy bank. And so, again, the enterprise version of this has allowed ASU to basically go from being, again, moving to that growth mindset that we spoke about earlier, rather than the constraint mindset. And basically, our researchers are able to use with nearly unlimited use of the underlying machine learning algorithms and compute power that is in those environments. And so those are all part of the things that we're doing with OpenAI, and we're also doing our level best to help be a trusted advisor to them as they think about how they are approaching the education marketplace. And we hope to be able to share some of that at ASU GSV in San Diego with some folks from OpenAI with us.
So as you think about how generative AI comes on the scene and the different type of, what needs to change as a student to be, you think about the whole role of the prompt engineers and so on. What are some of the things that sort of are changing the game as what it means to be a student, and how does that affect, how you operate and how ASU operates as an institution?
Well, again, at this point, obviously, I'm more into that would be more of a crystal ball kind of story, because these are really early days. I can well imagine, a whole series of very interesting conversations. For example, I just received this morning a note from one of our large public school districts here in Arizona. They read about and heard about the project we're doing with writing that we were just talking about, the English comp piece of it. Because, it's out there, and Kyle Jensen, who leads ASU's Writing Center, has spoken all over the world, and he's written pieces that he's been quoted in the Wall Street Journal. So he's obviously inside all the higher education, publications that are out there. And so he reached out and said, so if you're doing it at college, could we do it and make use of this at high school? Now imagine if actually this technology, the AI technology, gets moved further into the pipeline, so that instead of thinking about freshman comp as essentially the remediation of things that need to be done because students don't learn it at high school, to think that now they could well learn it in high school, means that we could be rethinking entirely what happens in terms of creative expression, which is really what I would hope the overall goal of why we want to make sure everyone has a foundational capability. So I'm just thinking about that in real time, because literally not an hour ago, I received a note from the superintendent's office from the school district here. And that's just one small example of, just imagine as these technologies begin to actually take off. Imagine, for example, ASU's Dreamscape effort, which is, this immersive biology and now soon to be chemistry, and shortly thereafter art history and so forth. These are immersive discovery-based approaches with great narratives and storytelling. Well, more and more now, the inquiries that we're getting for schools who are interested in the technology are high schools, because again, they have their own drivers for why they need to have more success in the STEM subjects. Again, imagine if that is something that students experience in high school, and the success that we've witnessed at college in terms of student success. If that is happening in high school, how many more students we could actually then anticipate in the pipeline to actually be ready for college. So I can imagine all of this really opening the aperture of the art of the possible, because a lot of what we could do at college would actually be building on much stronger foundational knowledge development, which affords us an opportunity, I think, to kind of begin to explore new frontiers.
Yeah, and we think Dreamscape is, we're an investor, a full disclosure in Dreamscape. That is
as
amazing.
Are we at ASU, in full disclosure.
Right. But incredibly exciting. I think it is really open-ended and really opens your eyes to what can be done but I think even more broadly speaking to what you're saying, what excites me is really this unleashing of human potential as you're able to kind of accelerate and organize, foundational knowledge, but now you're able to use it in a more creative, more impactful way. I think that's where all this is going. And I think that's what's so cool and exciting about it. Just as we're running out of time, I know you were kind enough to give us a slot, but talk about some other things you're excited about. You guys got so many things going on. What else do you see going on that you think could be game changing? As we are on the edge. So we're and you are definitely on the edge of a lot of the transformative things that are going on. So what else are you excited about?
Well, so today we've focused a lot on AI. We've at least briefly mentioned sort of AR, VR, XR kinds of technologies, for which I think there's a very important sort of opportunity and a vector of development that I think are very exciting. I think there hasn't been as much attention yet in higher education on digital twins and its potential both as a platform for not only architects and city planners, which is where it kind of has its current commercial home, but also potentially imagining it for all engineering students, with over 30,000 engineering students, if, being able to understand the power of digital twins to actually create real-time simulation capacity in any lab or in any, condition. It could be in a cityscape, it could be in a rural community. All of these ideas are actually building out a platform technology that incorporates the geographic information systems with all kinds of other data, and under it, a gaming engine that allows people to experience, the what if scenarios that you can build for, over a experimental time horizon. If we did this, we changed the built environment to include more high rises, what does that do to wind through the area? And if so, what implication does that have for, the availability of, it could be, water availability that ends up being challenged. All of those what ifs, and I think digital twin work is something that, ASU is very much interested in. And, from ASU, and just to share that, our Global Futures Collaboratory, which is a huge initiative with literally over 500 faculty, they aspire, for example, to actually create a global health observatory, an observatory of the health of the planet, using digital twin technology. And I mean, that's just one, I think, fantastic use of the digital twin technology, which isn't yet sort of found its sort of place inside the educational technology world just yet. I think another piece of it that's really quite interesting is, in the area of solving a pain point that is particularly challenging for all, I think, major universities, but I think all students who go to a university, and that is that somewhere in the order of about a third of all transfer credits get lost. You take a class at one school, community college or a school, and you try to transfer them into the next environment, and actually schools won't accept each other's basically the transfer credit that defines whether or not and how you're going to kind of get your way through college. And those course
it's worse than Thomas Cook at Heathrow Airport. You go, you change your dollars for your pounds, and all of a sudden you say, well, something happened.
You're losing a third of the value just in the
Right.
transfer process.
Right.
And those course equivalencies, it's so sort of 19th and maybe 20th century, but it's largely like an old problem. And the technology, we think, can begin to address that. We've had a whole suite of technologies as part of our credit mobility and our trusted learner network. The goal is not to solve these only for ASU. The goal is obviously to solve this so that it makes it easier for students who choose to come to ASU to know in advance. But we're trying to do something similar to what Progressive Insurance has done, which is to say you could shop it as a learner. You want to see what credit you can get from ASU and compare it to school number 2 and 3 and 4 and figure out which school is going to make it easier for you to get all those transfers. You can go ahead, we hope, and be able to actually essentially do your own testing of what schools you're going to be able to get into, get your courses acknowledged and equivalencies issued for helping you get through the course experience. That is a fundamental friction point, as we know. A lot of students, 1 out of every 2 students in this country start school but doesn't finish school. If and when you decide to come back to school, the last thing you want to do is find out that your course, your transcript from your previous institution is not worth the dollar that you paid for it.
Yeah, and I know you and I have been talking about this for more than 5 years, and it's a big idea. It's an important idea. It's a big problem, but it's a complicated problem. But just go back real quick as we're wrapping up, because I know
Yep.
I know you need to wrap up. But you talk about the digital twin piece, which is a big deal, and you talk about kind of the simulation application of it, which is very powerful. But there's also just this idea of the toggling between my virtual life and my physical life. The kind of the metaverse piece, which I know was another component that I think is this reality of the student of the future. It's not my digital life. It's not my physical life. They're all kind of merged. And how do you think about that as it relates to Arizona State and the future of learning?
Well, I mean, what I would say, Michael, is that at ASU, we do our level best to meet students where they are. And I think actually students are already there. I think their lives are actually a combination of their multiple online personas and experiences and ways in which they navigate the online world with the things that they do, whether it's in their residence halls or whether it's in the classroom or in their sporting or their other clubs that they belong to. And I think at ASU, this idea of leveraging the metaverse, broadly speaking, a term that has lost some of its cachet, but under the concept is the idea of creating blended hybrid environments that meet students in ways that hopefully make it attractive and hopefully even compelling for them to participate in their own learning journey, to be successful and being able to show evidence of their success in that learning journey. And at ASU, I think we're committed to, again, in our growth mindset, bringing all of the power of technology in all of its dimensions to unlock that human potential.
Lev, you are incredible. This was over the top in terms of just over the top, off the charts. Let's get your perspective on all this. Look forward to having you back again. Look forward to seeing you in San Diego in mid-April and hopefully in between. So thank you so much for everything.
What's new in the world of education? How's the global innovation? Let us do the calculations, use all our imagination. You'll subscribe, no hesitation, with my corroboration. And that's a bet I will not hedge. Listen up, cause it's Ed on the Edge.